Welcome back to another edition of Drop the Mitts Hockey Podcast, brought to you in partnership with Primetime Productions. We have an unbelievable guest today, analyst on NBC, ESPN, former professional hockey player, BU legend Colby Cohen. Colby, how you doing, man? Thank you so much
Good.
for being here.
BU legend. I don't know, man. There's some. Those are big shoes to fill. I got a big goal, but definitely I appreciate it.
Man, I'm a big BU guy. I'm from the area, so man, that's honestly my first question. Can you take us through that goal you scored? Shaddy drops it back to you. What do you remember from that play, man? I was watching the broadcast the other day, and you said it was going to go in anyways. The thing looked like a missile.
Yeah, well, I hit the crossbar earlier in that game. I think in the second period on a play where I kind of walked in and kind of let one go from the offside, a place that I scored a lot of goals from when I was there, kind of my area on the ice on the power play. I think Benino gave me one like right in a good spot. And in the game before that, I hit a post as well against Vermont. So like I was pretty like dialed on where the puck was going for me. So like I was thinking short side high all the way on that. And then the guy goes down and gets a piece of it. Obviously everybody knows how that went in. So I honestly I wish I like remembered more of it, to be totally honest with you. Like it's a little bit of a blur, but this time of year it seems to get talked about, quite often just because of everything going on and my involvement in it and whatnot. So always fun to live those moments,
With the old Easton Synergy too. I remember you brought that
Right.
up, man. I'm like, man, I miss those days. But yeah, you mentioned, man, one of the best times of year. We got, the regionals coming up. You're going to be in Providence with Bucci covering those games. Obviously, BC is going to be there. Out of the four regions, with Providence, Sioux Falls, Springfield, and Maryland Heights, out of those regions, which one do you think is the deepest and has the most talent out of all these?
Deepest and most talent, I think maybe are different responses. I think deepest is St. Louis. I mean, Michigan, North Dakota, Michigan State, Western Michigan. I mean, that's a big time schools, big time regionals, big name programs. Michigan, North Dakota. I mean, nobody has, those guys are right there with Denver, BC, like for most national championships. Michigan State as it's a big brand. Western's been good all year. They've been knocking for a couple of years. So that's probably the most difficult region. But, from a skill standpoint, I mean, there's really no team that has more skill than BC. I mean, that they've proven it all year. They've been the number one team most of the year for a reason. It's not a fluke. I mean, they're definitely the best team going into the tournament. I mean, there's no other way around that. You watch what BC can do. You see the skill, the talent, the way they play together, the goaltending. They hit every box. Their defensive group is really good. And look, I think BU is another, they're a really good team. They've been number 2 in the country for most of the year behind BC. I think BC's beaten them 3 times. BU's beaten them once. So BC's been better. Again, results are what they are. So I think BU, we should see them back in the Frozen Four. No doubt BC should be in the Frozen Four. I think Denver could find their way back to the Frozen Four this year, although they'll be probably without Rizzo this weekend, who's one of their best players. But I think I wouldn't be surprised to see the big name schools back in the Frozen Four this year. Like, wouldn't shock me to have 3 or 4 blue blood types of schools back in Minnesota this year at the Frozen Four.
Are there any games that you look at and like could potentially see like a big upset in? I know a game I look at, man, is this RIT team. You and Bucci mentioned they're one of the older teams in this, in this tournament, the oldest actually. And as good as BC is, are there any games that you look at and think, wow, there really could be an upset here?
Yeah, I don't think RIT is going to beat BU by any stretch.
Sorry, BU.
Bad. I just don't see that happening. I think BU's just been too good. I mean, you never know. And as far as BC Michigan Tech goes, I mean, I like we'll see what happens, but I just can't imagine
Right.
BC losing. Like, they're just too good. They've been too good all year. Their players are too good. I think if I was going to guess Butchie thinks UMass could beat Denver. I'm
Especially
not.
without Rizzo, man.
Yeah, I think Denver's too deep. And I just think that, UMass relies, two of their top leading scorers are defensemen. I love Scott Morrow. I think he's a tremendous player. Ryan Ufko, another good player. I just don't think they have enough firepower up front, UMass. And like Michigan State, I think, is going to have their hands full with Western Michigan. I think Western Michigan's a big, strong team. They play straight line hockey. They can score. I think it'll depend. I think Augustine could be the difference in that game for Michigan State. So, I think I'd keep an eye on that Western versus Michigan State game. I'd keep an eye on that one. The UMass Denver game, I'd keep an eye on that one, although I think Denver will win. But again, it's one game. You get down early, you get a hot goalie on the other side. You really never know. I think that's kind of what makes this exciting. Like, it's not a best of 7 where the better team's going to win. You don't have to be the better team to get through one game. Like, you can get a couple of good bounces. You can get a hot goalie and hang on in a one game format. So, those are things to kind of keep in mind.
You being a former defenseman, you bring up Michigan State, a guy that I kind of have been covering. I do a lot of draft coverage. Artem Levshinov. Obviously, he's getting a lot of hype. He's going to be, you got to think, within the top 5, potentially top 3. Have you gotten the opportunity to watch this kid? And if so, what are some things you like out of this kid?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've seen him play 3 times this year, so I don't have a lot of viewings on him. Now, if they make the Frozen Four, that'll change. The other browsers on my computer right now are Instat. I was just watching Boston College's power play entries. Next, I'll get into Michigan Tech, and I'll start watching their zone entries. I'll start watching their D zone. I go through every team. I look at their zone entries. I look at their D zone. I look at their special teams.
Right.
I just try to really get an idea of who these teams are, because I haven't seen Michigan Tech play this year. Right. So as far as Levshinov goes, look, he's got everything you want in a defenseman. He moves the puck. He skates well. He's very offensively gifted. I like the way he defends. We look at him as this offensive defenseman, but I think he defends quite well. He's kind of a total package, and you're not a top 3-4 player in the NHL draft as a defenseman without being very complete in a total package. So what will be interesting to see is once he gets drafted, does he jump right away? I think he should stay another year. I don't think leaving after 1 year for a defenseman is the right decision. So I think that's more the intrigue with him, but it's hard to pick out what you like or don't like with his game because he's really good at everything. I mean, he's an elite level player who looks to be like he's going to be, a really good NHLer.
Yeah, very seldom do you see defensemen just hop in right away and just are able to contribute. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer for them to develop. Rather, like Victor Hedman comes to mind, took a little bit longer as the number 2 pick. But kind of going back to the tournament, are there any players that you kind of look at as maybe not getting necessarily a ton of recognition that could really make an impact for their teams? I mean, obviously this past weekend, Cutter Gauthier ripped it up. Will Smith had an unbelievable weekend. The usual guys, right? Are there any players that you kind of look at that could really make a significant impact for their teams and help them out that people may not necessarily know about?
Probably. I mean, look, everybody knows who Rutger McGroarty is, but he's not being talked about enough.
Right.
They spiraled out of control when they didn't have Rutger due to injury in World Juniors this year. And then the second half of the season, he just went on a mission. Didn't get put in the top 10 for Hobie, which I thought was crazy, insane. Yeah. But I think watch him. If Michigan's going to go upset North Dakota, it's going to be because what he does. I mean, he's going to have to drag that team through that game and through that regional, and probably, with an opportunity to have a little rematch with Michigan State if they can get through North Dakota. I'm not sure they can, but he's a guy that I absolutely love. I think, just kind of, I got all these line charts and in front of me from my region. I think another guy, from Quinnipiac is probably Colin Graff. I think last year they win the championship. He didn't really stand out in the Frozen Four. I think Lipkin and Quillen had better Frozen Fours than him. Quillen gets the game winner from Lipkin, but I think they were more impactful. I thought Graf faded out a little bit. So I think Colin Graf is another guy to keep your eye on. He's going to be a big free agent signing. He's got a shit ton of points. He's in the Hobie conversation this year. I think he's a good guy to keep an eye on with that team. Obviously, Sam Lipkin's a 7th-round pick from from Arizona. He's another really good player that if Quinnipiac's going to beat Wisconsin and then have a chance against BC, it's going to have to come because those guys are really raising their games.
You had mentioned on the selection show that you are still part of the Hobie Baker committee. If you had to narrow it down to like 3 guys that you think are really, really deserving, because you mentioned, I was shocked that Rucker McGroarty wasn't on there. Shocked by it. There was a couple other guys. Gavin Brindley, same thing, another Michigan guy. If you could narrow it down to 3 guys that you think really have a legitimate chance, most deserving, who would those guys be?
So, I mean, look, I think it's Cutter Gauthier, I think it's Macklin Celebrini, and I think it's Will Smith. And I wonder if the whole Smith and Gauthier being teammates thing hurts them, because it's like one or the other type of situation. But in fairness, I don't see the West quite as much. I do watch some of those games on CBS and other avenues, but I've probably got some homework and some digging to do more. But if you were to tell me right now, write your 3 in on the ballot, I mean, those on my ballot, the way we do it, once they get the 10, then the committee takes the 10 and we vote on the award. The committee and we put our guys and we rank them 1 through 5. Those 3 players will be in my top 5. Gauthier and Celebrini will be 1, 2 on my Hobie ballot. I'm not sure which way yet. I don't know yet. I've gone back and forth. I had Celebrini, and then this weekend, I think Cutter Gauthier probably put himself in front of Celebrini, but there are other factors at play, like who Celebrini plays with versus, who the other guy plays with. So those guys will be number 1 and number 2 on my ballot. I don't know the order. I think Will Smith will most likely be number 3 on my ballot. And then 4, 5, I'm unsure about. I think, Graf is a name to keep an eye on. I think there's a couple of players out west that I'll really be keeping an eye on and digging in a little bit more on. So that'll happen here over the next 2 weeks. We'll put those ballots in and we'll have our committee call and, go through our process of picking the Hobie Baker.
For sure, man. And kind of want to transition a little bit before we end here to your broadcasting career. You've had an unbelievable career this far. I mean, it's very short, but you've made a significant impact. You've worked with some absolute legends. You mentioned Bucci, Barry Melrose. Man, and obviously we know about, the sad, Barry going through, Parkinson's, freaking terrible. Man, what has it been like working with those guys? What is, again, what impact have they had on you in your career in broadcasting?
Yeah, I mean, look, those are 2 of my, Butchie's one of my closest friends in the world. Our relationship goes so much farther than broadcasting and just our friendship and how much time we hang and we talk all the time. Barry, it's just the best. Like, Barry is Barry. Like, what you see is who he is, right? And he treats everybody great. I would have never had the chance to join the Frozen Four crew. I think this will be my 6 years now with them, on this top crew. And I did 4 previously, or 3 or 4 previously, not on that crew. And Barry was the one who had to okay it. They wanted to add me to the crew. And I think Butchie too, but I think for mostly it had to be Barry to sit there and go, yeah, I have no problem with this. And he did. And the time I got to spend with Barry, I got to know him. We had so many dinners together, breakfast, lunch, dinner, every meal together for basically 2 weeks a year. And we just had so much fun. I mean, Barry's, he's the best. Like, honestly, one of my favorite people I've ever met in hockey. To me, he's on my Mount Rushmore of people I met in hockey. Him, Jeremy Roenick, I'd put on Mount Rushmore too. Yeah. Just guys that I've got to hang out with and spend time with that I got to watch as a kid. that just turned out to be the best humans ever, and people that I just love, and they love back, and I have such good relationships with. So, you know, it's been awesome. Butchie's great because he's been, you know, a friend, a you know, a little bit of a mentor. He's helped me a lot. You know, he's not afraid to give you feedback, stuff like that, which is great. So those guys have been great. I've also got to do games with Kenny Albert in the NHL and Sam Rosen. And those guys are Hall of Famers, man. Like Sam Rosen's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, he is.
I got to do a ton of playoff games with him over the years. I did some playoff games with Kenny Albert. And they're great guys, and they're not all like that. I've worked with a couple of really big name guys. I worked with one Hall of Fame play-by-play guy who was a total prick. Couldn't have been more of an asshole to me. You know, and you know, just thought because he called thousands of NHL games, thought he played thousands of NHL games, and that's not the case. And there's a lot of play-by-play guys and broadcasters out there that are like that. So I'm just really fortunate that the ones that I've worked with the most have all been really, really good people. And, you know, I've worked with I worked with Kevin Brown on the NCAA tournament. He's doing MLB now. He was a great guy. You know, Clay Madfix, awesome to work with. He's a really, really, really good guy. What a shame he didn't do the women's Frozen Four.
I know, man.
I think that's a big miss. Not having Clay do that game. He's just far superior to what they had on the air over the weekend. I mean, no question. You can't even argue that fact. Yeah. But so, you know, I've got to work with good people, and, you know, none better than Butchie and Barry. But this year will be strange without Barry. I know last year he didn't work as much. He didn't do regionals, and then he did one of the doubleheader games in the national championship. But I could talk. We could spend an hour talking about the stories and the dinners, and, you know, we always were ribbing him about ordering his steak well done. You know, Barry's a farm boy from Western Canada. Like, you know, Barry's childhood, there was a bell that went off at 4 a.m. and he was out working in the fields of his farm and milking cows. And, you know, he'd work until noon, and then he'd go to the hockey rink, and then he would work on hockey and play hockey and this and that. So, you know, he's as down to earth and as good a human being as you will ever come across on this planet. And, you know, I wish him nothing but the best. And I know we'll talk about him this weekend. For sure. I think we've got some cool tributes that we're working on putting together to run in this and the Frozen Four, because, you know, he's the best. And the last couple of years were hard, seeing people criticize him so much when I knew that he had Parkinson's. Yeah. Like, Barry never wanted to go public with Parkinson's until he just had, I mean, he's been dealing with this for close to 5 years now. And, you know, people would be, you know, so awful and negative about him and Barry doesn't watch college hockey and this and that. And it's like, what people from these small schools need to realize. I saw something on Twitter the other day. Some fan from Omaha is like, these guys, can we get some people from the West? Well, let me just explain something to you. Nobody outside of Omaha is watching University of Nebraska Omaha. I know it's the most important thing to you in the world, but you're not playing on national television.
Right.
You're in middle America. Like, it's a great program. I played in Lincoln, Nebraska. Great people, great program. But, like, you can't expect me on Friday and Saturday night to go on the internet and watch your games. But what happens is the NCAA tournament comes around. We have programs like Instat, and I will learn more about your team over the course of this 5 or 7 days than you will ever know about your team. I promise you.
Right.
So when I see that type of shit, I'm just like, give me a break. And when you look at the analysts in the NCAA tournament, Sean Richland, Michigan, Paul Caponigri, Ohio State, okay? Ben Clymer, Minnesota. I'm the only guy from the East.
Right.
So it's just like, it's so annoying. Yeah, on Friday and Saturday night, when I'm home with my family, we're going to watch BU.
Yep.
I went to BU. We're BU fans, okay? Now, granted, once I'm working, you have to put that aside.
Right.
But, like, we're human beings, right? Like, we watch.
It's inevitable, man.
Exactly. So when I see this shit about, Barry doesn't know college hockey,
that's
blah, blah,
such
blah.
bullshit.
Barry has forgotten more about college hockey. Excuse me. Barry has forgotten more about the sport of hockey than anybody on Twitter will ever know about the sport of hockey. He's forgotten that much, right? Yeah. Like, this guy is an institutional wealth of knowledge
Yeah.
about the game of hockey.
Legend.
So,
Like I said, man, growing up, I mean, watching college hockey, I lived for it, and he was a staple in my childhood. You know what I'm saying? Like professional, college, everything.
exactly.
Bucci, it's
I'd
people don't
rather
get
have
it.
Barry doing a college hockey game because he's Barry freaking Melrose than someone who did 70 games for college hockey during the year. I just would. It's Barry
Right.
Melrose.
Yeah,
Like,
I agree,
he
man.
knows the game.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. He may confuse, like Butchie made a joke. He calls college programs organizations and
Right.
this and that. But like, so what?
Who gives
Like,
a shit?
so freaking what? So
We
we'll
know what
miss
he's talking
Barry.
about.
Yeah, we'll miss Barry this year.
Yeah.
We'll talk about him for sure. It won't be the same, but hey, like this is unfortunately like how life goes. And
Yeah.
and like I said, I wouldn't be in the situation I'm in with ESPN with the NCAA tournament if not for Barry. So I can't say enough good things about him.
Yeah, man. And, again, just hate to hear that stuff. I know Bucci's doing a ton to try to support with the shirts, all the merch that you can get. I'll post that obviously in the episode link and whatnot. But Colby, I can't thank you enough, man. I know how busy you are. You just taking the time means.
It's definitely the busiest 2 weeks of the year for me. And you throw in the fact that my daughter's birthday happens right during the NCAA tournament,
Oh,
her first birthday. So we've got family in and around and stuff.
oh
So
yeah, man.
it's a little bit of a shit show. So I appreciate you having me on.
Yes,
Thanks
sir.
for your service, man. Obviously that means a lot. It really does. I actually work with the Flyers Warriors here in Philadelphia. Our team, we're getting ready for Nationals is actually the same weekend as the Frozen Four, so I won't be there to coach. But we've got 4 teams. We've got 100 players. They're all disabled
Unreal, man.
veterans. Our program takes
that.
care of all their equipment, all their entry fees, our travel. We take care of it for all the guys. It's really cool. It's one of my favorite things that I do. So, I just wanted to say that to you. Your service is appreciated. And I don't think enough people realize that we get to do what we do because of people that have sacrificed like you have. Otherwise, we wouldn't get to do what we do. You see what's happening in other parts of the world. It's not happening here because of people like you. Okay. And, it's horrible to see. And our greatest ally in Israel, is going through it right now. And we see what they're dealing with over there. My family has deep, deep ties. My last name's Cohen.
Right.
Put 2 and 2 together pretty quickly there.
Right.
So, our service, our vets, our active, duty, our reserves, like people just don't realize how, like, we use the word hero way too nonchalant these days, but those are the people that are true heroes. It's not just them. It's firefighters. It's police officers. It's,
absolutely, man.
It's service workers. Those are what heroes are like. And that's where it ends, right? Like,
right.
That's where it ends for me. So I appreciate that, man. I really do.
Colby, I can't, man, that's so kind, to hear. It makes me emotional hearing stuff like that because it's unbelievable knowing what I don't get to serve anymore. That was taken from me, but I can't thank you enough for taking the time to be on here.
I know I missed you. I missed you last time. I know we were trying to link up. So when you asked me, I'm like, I got you. Let's just do it really quick.
Yeah.
I'm getting through my preparations now and doing stuff with my family. So
right.
Appreciate it. And we'll I'm sure you'll be watching a lot of hockey this week.
Absolutely, man. All right, man. Well, you guys can follow Colby at Colby Cohen 36. You most definitely, if you guys are in the Boston area, you're going to be seeing him if you're watching the BC game. Him and Bucci will be covering those games. Again, you can follow him at Colby Cohen 36, host of Morning Cup of Coffee with our buddy Laz, who's a beauty and himself.
Morning Cup of Hockey.
Dude, my brain is in a blender.
You're not the only one. Everybody does
Morning
that.
Cup of Hockey.
Didn't I say that? And I'm like, no, you said Morning Cup of Coffee.
You know what's hilarious?
Yeah,
I wrote it down too. Just by whatever, man. My brain's in a friggin' blender. But man, can't thank you enough. Best of luck, everything, with your child's birthday, everything, family coming in, huge weekend, amped up for it. Thank you again, brother.
You got it. All right,
All right.
buddy. Have a
Take
good
care,
one.
man. That was Colby Cohen, legendary analyst. I mean, man, he's really making a name for himself. In the college hockey world. Again, I can't believe I fucked that one up. Morning cup of coffee. I don't know what the hell, my brain. Morning cup of hockey. And I mentioned you can follow him at Colby Cohen 36. Again, one of the most knowledgeable guys I've gotten the opportunity to follow. I always love seeing his takes. Him and Laz do an unbelievable job with their podcast. But again, scored that legendary goal for BU to beat Miami of Ohio. So we can't thank him enough for taking the time out of his busy schedule. Obviously, we got the regionals coming up. Gave us some cool knowledge there. A little preview of what's to come. But that wraps up episode 36 of Drop the Mitts Hockey Podcast, brought to you in partnership with Prime Time Productions. That was Colby Cohen. I'm your host, Chris Davis. Again, we hit a couple milestones pretty recently. We hit 10,000 followers on TikTok. We are getting dangerously close to 100 subscribers on YouTube. That is something I never thought would have happened, and it doesn't happen without you all. Unbelievable. I can't believe I'm even saying that. So grateful, so blessed to be able to do what I do. And again, I have you all to thank for that. So I greatly appreciate you guys more than you will ever know. And again, that wraps up episode 36. We'll see you next week. Take care, everyone. Love you guys.